your humble host, Gabriel Von Graves. And tonight, as always, I'm joined by the ever insightful Raven Knight. Welcome, Raven. And tonight, we're not walking into the dark alone. We're joined by someone we trust, a voice of reason, a personal friend of ours. Dave, formerly known of Chumming with the Spirits, Dave brings something to this conversation that no paranormal world doesn't always welcome, but desperately needs perspective. Because let me ask you something. When you hear a noise in the dark, when something moves just beyond your sight, when a story grips you just enough to make you believe, do you accept it or do you question it? Because tonight, we're not just exploring the unknown, we're challenging it. In the world of paranormal, belief is easy. Stories spread quickly, experiences are shared freely, but truth requires discipline. Skepticism is not the enemy of the paranormal. It is what protects it. Because without skeptics, everything becomes evidence. And when everything is evidence, nothing is credible. Tonight, Raven, Dave, and I are diving into something that separates storytellers from investigators, being a skeptic. Not to dismiss the experiences, but to understand it. Not to shut the door, but to make sure we open it the right way. Because sometimes that sound in the hallway is just an old house settling. And sometimes it's something else entirely. So tonight, we walk that line together between belief and doubt, between curiosity and the truth. I'm once again Gabriel Von Graves, alongside me, Raven Knight, and our good friend Dave. Thank you for joining us, Dave. It is always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah. So, one of the when we do a lot of these interviews, we always like to learn the perspective of the other person and allow them explain their background in the paranormal and the experiences they have had. Um, Raven and I are very blessed, sir, that we know you personally and a lot of some of the stories you shared with us. Do you mind kind of compacting everything that we know into 10 minutes? Let us know who is Dave. We know that you were a podcaster and you guys were wildly successful. And you still go on and you do your thing. You're connected all over the place. So for the our listening audience that hasn't had the pleasure of knowing you, can you please kind of explain who you are and your expertise in the field?
Well, who I am, I'm just a guy like everybody else. As far as expertise, I wouldn't say I have any expertise at all. Anybody that says they're an expert in anything, you run from that person as fast as,
Absolutely, you do.
especially in the paranormal. That's how I feel. Now, some people have done a lot of investigations and research, and I applaud that. I mean, to be good at something, you need to do that, right? But I think in this field, there's no experts because we still have too many answers. I'm just a guy that is lucky enough to go on some investigations with friends like you guys that I absolutely love to death, and you guys know that. You guys are charming. You got a great podcast, and I'm just honored to be here. Saying that, I've just been very lucky to do some stuff. What I'm not lucky is that I had a haunted growing up. Growing up haunted, a lot of paranormal experience in every house we ever lived in. Now, whether that followed us from home to home, I don't know because we moved quite a bit. So I wasn't sure we were just always broke and couldn't afford the house anymore, so we had to move on, or if my mom and dad were running from something. So, and that's something one day we'll sit down and have an old fashioned and talk about for sure.
A smoked old fashioned, I hope.
Oh yeah, absolutely, my friend.
Well, you're a very humble guy, but I can assure people out there listening to us that you have a set of skills and a discipline when it comes to the paranormal, that you remove the sensation of it and you actually examine what is it. And that is something that we just don't see. We've been on a lot of paranormal investigations with you, and I can tell you that when there are truly things happening around us, Dave, you literally stop and try to examine what outside influences can it be to create this whatever environment that's happening at the moment. Raven, you've had a lot of experiences as well. And we don't really talk about our experiences a lot because we're always focused on our guest and what they bring to the show and highlighting them because there's so many wonderful people in the paranormal world, and we are truly blessed to sit there and have conversations with a lot of them. I can personally tell you that a lot of them that we talk to, I look as friends. A lot of them are people just trying to listen to them. Not everything in the paranormal is paranormal. I think if we're being true to investigating the paranormal world, I would say 90% of it is fake. What do you think, Raven?
I agree with you, and I love that you bring that up. I think this is a very important conversation that we're having, and the fact that Dave is here. So, all three of us, as well as a lot of people we've talked to, have had experiences that we can't
Hmm.
explain. But it's very important to, like, if you move into an old house, to realize that, hey, that might not be a ghost. That just could be the house shifting, or that could be such and such happening, or like strange noises in the middle of the night doesn't necessarily mean that it's something haunted. So I love that you asked that. And I 100% believe that. Even though, we've talked so many times about, I mean, growing up for me it was X-Files. We all know that.
Absolutely.
Um, and I always say I'm more of the Mulder, the Fox Mulder, um, of the group of the two of us, and you're the Dana Scully. Like, I'm way more. I want to believe that everything is paranormal, and you're like, okay, but let's take a step back and look at it. At the same time, that being said, like, I also know we have to debunk it first. So I love that you bring all that up. And then to bring Dave back in, Dave, why do you think it's important that we debunk things and look at things in that way?
I don't think you can be really considered trustworthy or how do I say efficient as an investigator, a ghost hunter, unless you're willing to take things to the next level. Like, let's try to figure this out. Okay, this happened. What made that happen? I think it's really important. And you, all three of us, we've been together on a few investigations, and we talk about it. Oh no, that sounds like someone was downstairs in the kitchen, or one of the thing is, um, how can I put this where I don't bore you to death? If if we three are in a room together, maybe at a Sally house, maybe that happened, maybe it didn't, and Gabriel feels something, a sensation or something like that, but Raven are like, well, we think maybe that's the air conditioning kicking on. Maybe that's not. Maybe that's the airflow you're feeling, that cold spot, if you will. It's okay to have that disagreement without being upset, but you truly need to, look at it. You need to investigate that. Guys, not everything that goes bump in the night is paranormal, and a lot of people that I've investigated with, which is a lot of times, and God bless them, the ones that say I'm a skeptic are usually the first ones to say that's paranormal. In my, in my opinion, and just like orbs. Now, you guys know how I feel about orbs. Before the Sally House event with us three, I would say 100% orbs, absolutely dust, water particles, whatever. They're not real. I'm down to like maybe 95% of them are fake.
Right.
What we went through. I just had a really, I don't want to get up on a tangent or hurt your podcast. A friend of mine, who I do some business with, he went to Pythian Castle down in Springfield, which I think everybody should go there and investigate. And he brought back a video. He goes, "Hey, what do you think?" And it was particles flown in the air. And I'm like, "Well, that's dust." And he goes, "No, no, no. I talked to the owner, and she says there's no dust in this castle." So you got to let them have that, right? So you push
Right.
away. Okay, I see the way it's falling. It's not a illuminating orb like your pocket, but it's
Hmm.
reflecting light, and it. So it's just really important that we do look at it that way. Um, that's my it's a common sense approach.
So
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And if you don't mind, another friend of the show, a beautiful woman, your wife Liz, um, she last time we had you guys on here, she told a wonderful story about her experience with a Bigfoot, and that's why I'm wearing this cap in honor of Liz. Um, she doesn't strike me as somebody that sensationalizes our comes up with stuff just to be heard. She strikes me as a woman that is of substance, and she only speaks because it's the truth. She just is that type of person. So I was a big disbeliever in Bigfoot. Listening to Liz's story, and then me and you sat. I had the wonderful experience spending a weekend with you, with your family. And I oh on that. Thank you very much for taking care of Rufus for me for a bit longer. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Um, yeah. Rufus is a
Rufus was
dog, a wonderful champion, purebred dog that Dave gave to me, and I said, Dave, I love that. Would you mind if you could hang on to him just a little bit? And you and your family said, you know what? Since he's actually ours, we'll be happy to continue watching our pet, right? I don't know. So, but thank you.
Well,
So, I was spending the weekend with you at your house, and we had wonderful food. We ate a couple times. We went shopping. I had a blast. But in the midst of that, we were watching videos of like the noises that Bigfoot makes, are the calling and also knocking the wood. And in the middle of that conversation, I said, Dave, that happened to me in Midwest Wisconsin, right?
hmm
Because I live in the middle of nowhere around Amish. And I said, Dave, everything that I'm listening to on these videos happened here on my farm. And then I started believing. But before I can believe, I had a doubt. And I love that. So, can you mind telling us a little bit of your knowledge of Bigfoot?
well, I don't know if I have a lot. I just know I'm really intrigued by it. Since I saw the Patterson Gimlin film as a child, I just I just knew in my heart that that was real, and after doing some research and listening to people who do special effects, there's like look at the head proportion to the body. There's no way that could be a man in a costume because a man's head would not fit in that kind of head shape because of the cone. If you look at the old King Kong movies, those heads are 3 times as big as the body to make the person be able to fit into the head for the head to work. That head was proportionate. The muscle serrations as Patty walked, you could see the muscles bulging and twitching, and her thighs, her back arm, everything. We didn't have that kind of stuff back in '67.
In
That wasn't existent. We didn't make costumes like that. We can't even hardly look at now.
well,
You know,
back in '67, Dave, they would not have showcased a female
no,
Bigfoot. It would have been a male because it was male dominated. Yeah,
yep, and you're right because Hollywood was, pretty the macho thing
Texas.
on
Right.
what they showed in that film. And the biggest part for me was watching your eyes light up when you heard the Sierra sound and your jaw hit the floor, and you're like, "Oh my god, tell me they don't do this." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's look it up. Let's see if they do it." As you and I researched in my living room for 30 minutes, uh, the realization that there's still a chance of, well, you did have a Bigfoot encounter on your property, and
And I'm a believer.
and you weren't at that time.
Yeah,
No,
no,
there's like 10 episodes to say otherwise, you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
Go back and listen to the ones before you. It's-
we called you afterwards after we had to tell you this. Said, Dave, what did my co was? You were mad because I had this idea. What did you do to my co-host? It was so funny. So
I love that. So,
That was
Raven,
considered what you did.
you are a Bigfoot believer way before I was.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me why. Why did you believe in Bigfoot so fiercely? And every time, and we would not get in arguments, but I would make fun of you because of it. I'm like, listen,
This is true.
does whoever talking to him, I'm like, listen, do you believe in the fictitious, Bigfoot? I mean, here I am pulling out all this merchandise stuff. I said, you know what? He's become nothing but a capitalist symbol. And then you're like, well, no, Gabriel.
I mean, okay, so for me, I've never actually had a Bigfoot experience.
Right.
However, that being said, like for me, Bigfoot, we know that there are forests out there, just areas of land that
We
have
do
not
know that there are forests out there.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
That
you.
we know is a
Very, very good.
fact. We
Yes, we
cannot
do.
disprove
Absolutely. Yes.
that there are forests.
Dave.
And the forests, the forests are so vast, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, and I've explained it to you this way before, but like the ocean, right? The ocean is so deep, we don't even know what's all in the ocean. We don't know what's all up above us. So how can we say that Bigfoot does not exist when there are literally areas of land that are so dense and have not yet been explored? So I'm saying, like, for me, Bigfoot, I didn't want to rule it out because of the fact that, there is just so much out there that we don't know. And to say that we know for a fact that it doesn't exist.
I don't think we can. I'm not trying to interrupt you, but hundreds of years of science and historical, like with the native Indian tribes talking about this creature,
Mm-hmm.
the wild man, if you will, or about a wild tribe that lived in the cave and hunted at night. I mean, there's just so many sides, so many stories. You just can't diminish that. You have to put that in perspective. That's historical.
It is.
100%.
Oh, speaking
The
of
same thing with
historical,
aliens,
by the
actually.
time that this is recorded, um, next week on the 3rd, I believe it is, we are sending, probably for the first time, people to slingshot around the moon. I don't know if you guys heard about this, and it's going
What?
to be the first time we send anybody up like in 50 years or ever. So it's very interesting that NASA will be sending people back to observe what's on the dark side of the moon. So just on the what's above us, that happens here, and I believe in 3 days, doesn't it, Dave? Do you know a lot about that?
I did see. I don't know a lot about it. I know a little about it. I watched news like a lot of people. I should say not everybody, but a lot of people. It's really interesting that we're going to go back or try. I didn't know. I thought we were possibly landing. I didn't know we were just going to observe and go around it. I
Yeah.
think that's, as you guys know, there's a theory of some things will fall on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah, well, since we are talking about being skeptics, it is very interesting on the note that you said, Dave. We are not landing on the moon, we're observing the moon's surface. Now, one could ask, right? We should know about the moon's surface because we are supposed to be there already. Then we recorded over the tapes and whatever, right?
Oh no, we lost
So,
them.
yeah,
Oops.
that's right. But we are going to go around the dark side to observe the surface, and eventually being able to go there, create some kind of space station where we will examine meteors hitting the moon. Because as I was watching the news, they explained to me that they have noticed there are a lot of craters on the moon for things hitting the moon, and I thought, well, when we were there, would we have not have seen it? But that's just me, right? I don't know. I just thought it was very interesting that in 2026 we are sending them to observe the surface of the moon
Right?
and the dark side of the moon, not
Not right.
land on the moon yet. So on that whole being a skeptic things, I thought I'd just throw that out there. But once again, good luck to them. I hope it goes flawlessly.
Yeah.
um, I forget the name of the rocket they're using, but it is NASA. It's not.
Mhm.
It's not one of Musk's starships, which is, I was kind of surprised by that. I actually thought he would be one of the first ones to be able to land one of his company's products on the moon. So I was actually fascinated that it was, NASA, because for the longest time NASA just kind of dealt with a lot of internal stuff. They didn't seem to want to go to the moon. But since Trump is in office, I guess they kind of changed direction. And I just thought it was interesting to note that in 3 days they will be observing the surface of the moon for the first time, probably.
Yeah, that's exciting. Raven, what do you think? Let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit if you guys want to. Did we land on the moon? Did we land on the moon? Who filmed them coming down and who filmed them taking off?
Yeah. You
The
know,
guy filming, handing the
in the
camera
movie
in the
studio.
studio.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There might be a
Go ahead,
little bit of
Reagan.
that. No, I again wanted to believe in the moon landing. However, all of the evidence now, when you're a kid and you learn about it and like that's what you read about and you get
Mhm.
shown all the videos and all of that and like obviously I believed in that until very recently in the last few years when the evidence just doesn't make sense. Again, you have to look at, okay, like you have to put your list of, is it possible or is it not possible? And some of the things like the fact that we have never gone back to the moon, okay.
Yeah.
Now we don't have the technology to go to the moon. That doesn't make sense at all. Or like you said, who was filming? Or there are literal videos of Buzz Aldrin basically saying, "Oh, we've never been there." Like,
So on
there's that.
that, I remember, I think it was last year when they were planning this trip, one of the astronauts mistakenly said we were going to the moon for the first time. And I remember seeing that. And then I remember them cutting that off real quick and then having some kind of technical difficulties. And then him literally explaining, will we be able to, one of the questions were, would be able to live stream it all the way? And he said, well, that's right now, that's kind of impossible. But yet, you know, the first moon landing was televised.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah,
They
and the
can't do
phone
it
call.
now. So interesting, I thought. But continue, Raven.
And do you remember the phone call? There was the phone call that the
Yes.
president got. They were on the moon.
Hmm.
Like half the time where I live, there's not that great of cell reception,
Right.
and I'm not on the moon.
And we have $1,000 cell phones that we carry in our pocket and throw around and do stupid videos and send selfies. So and they weren't able to. I'm just saying.
So I think that just brings up the whole point of like
Right.
with anything, and some of you might know this, but I went to journalism school, and the professor in class actually said, if your mom says she loves you, get three other sources to verify that. And that is that kind. Yeah, honestly, that was the quote. And so like you have to look at things and see whether or not it makes sense. You know, okay, if the house is making weird noises, is it creaking because it's old? Is it creaking, or is it, the neighbor making crazy noises? Like, you have to just check. You should have a checklist and check the boxes of
You're
what could be real or not.
100%. Especially like I was in the castle in Scotland where we stayed today. It was a bucket list for me. I stayed bucket list while we were in Scotland. So we got to stay at it was in Inverness. Oh god, what was the name of the castle? Tulloch Castle, Inverness. So I gave the boys the suite where Liz and I took a smaller room. That way the boys could have separate beds. And
Mm-hmm.
they were so ramped up in the ghost story haunted by the. Like, by the way, every castle in Scotland is haunted by the Green Lady. In case you don't know, Scotland, just pick a castle. So the Green Lady just goes from castle to castle.
I love her.
Well, and there's always a painting of her too. Um, so the boys were just so terrified that they were being coached by ghosts all night. And I'm thinking, their windows are completely open. How is that not a fly buzzing around? So it's just you have said something. You really need to, like we always say, let's look into it. You can be in an older house, step on the floor, and the door will open, or you're upstairs doing something, and the door downstairs opens up because the weight. You know, that's all things that you have to look at first thing. Okay, that get opened by those, or we have older kids. This fell out of the kitchen when I went upstairs. So we really need to know and investigate. That's the only way you can become, I don't say legitimate, but have something to you like this guy is. They're for real because they're just not going to say everything. There's too many people with a overactive imagination really get caught up with them.
But at the same time, do you remember when we were at the Sally House together for the first time? We smelt a red rose, our roses, and we were sniffing a wall. our
Yes.
where we were upstairs, you know, we were just chatting like friends do, and then we went downstairs, and then we went back up, and everything was different.
Yeah.
What was that, Dave? I mean, we like to pull things apart, and we like to look at things even before we even started investigating the Sally house. We were sitting outside, at least Raven was, and we were just kind of giving an intro of what we thought about the house before the investigation went on. And we were with Chumming with the Spirits, loved it. And they as we were doing with Raven, me and you both looked at each other because we saw something that was invisible, but yet it it was invisible, but yet it moved like the predator, and you kind of saw the like, you know, like the outline of it.
Yeah, the
And
shimmer,
then
the
yeah,
walk. Yeah. Um, that was crazy. I was so surprised that Raven didn't see that.
I didn't see it. I'm still bummed about that.
Golly, I mean, it was right next. Let's take it back. So, I'm in the living room doing my millimeter. My readings are like 930, 980. I'm like, gotta be that battery. The man, what is going on? So I want to reset the battery in 20 minutes. Was
hey, Dave, you keep on coming in and out. Can you move the mic a
oh,
little
is
bit?
that better?
Yeah, there you are. Hi.
Hi,
Hey,
Dave.
oh
You're such a fascinating guy. I wanted to make sure we got every word.
no. So I was getting crazy millimeter readings in the living room at Sally, and it was blowing me away. Yeah, like that. I see at Ottawa Theater when I place in it and responding, "Well, yes, it is." We caught that on the EP. I didn't hear it, so I was getting. And then he came in and said, "Hey, OG, take a look at this. What do you think?" A ball of light right in front of our friend Reagan. I'm like, "Well, that's a bug because I don't
Mhm.
orbs." And you go, "No, look at it again." So I did 13 times, and maybe 12. But yeah, okay, you're right. It's probably not a bug. I go, look, we're pretty smart people. Let's take a millimeter out there. Let's take a K2 meter. You got a video recorder. Let's do it again. See if we can
Mhm.
catch any kind of paranormal evidence to say that was not a bug, to say that was a orb or what, a spirit, whatever. And as they're recording, I'm looking right beside Raven. There's a see-through predator-looking creature that I can see through, but it's moving. Like you're saying, they're right beside her, and I'm like, "Don't overreact. Just watch this." And I know you're recording it. I'm not worried about it. We got evidence here. And then when we finish up, it walks away. That man got inside. And he looked around the street and looked at me and said, "Did anybody see anything?" And then bam, the lights went off. And, that was crazy. I've never seen anything like in my life. But I've told that story a few times now. And a lot of people are now telling me, "Hey, I heard about it." Or not our incident, but we've heard of people encountering this kind of, well, we
Oh,
engage. Now we have collaboration, but we don't have any film on
Yeah,
that. You know, it's a great story. It's a collaborated story, but that happened, and
it did happen.
I can't debunk it. And you know what the crazy part is? We didn't go into fear mode or blown
No,
away mode. We just acted like, okay, let's just continue on. That's
right.
not normal thinking. In my mind, we should have sat down and like, oh my, prayed or something like, oh my gosh, what just happened to us, right? But what happened when we went up there was the first time in my entire life where I backed to something I didn't know what's going on. Usually I'm like, let's go figure out what it is. And we know how brave Raven is because as soon as she heard something, she ran up the stairs and we had to go follow her because we
Yeah,
made she's not going to get hurt or one of us hurt, right? So
right.
I really appreciated that, Dave. Dave was like, "Okay, there she goes. We better go
yeah,
follow
like, go, go, go. Yeah, it was fun. I love investigating with you guys. But when we got to the landing, it stopped me. Right? What was your feeling?
It was really heavy. It's like you're walking through. The only thing I can describe it was you're walking through water because you have that force. You can walk
her."
through it, but you have that resistance. And
Oh,
it was very interesting to me because we were just up there without a care in the world. In fact, there was no lights on. we didn't really care. It literally was a very comfortable environment. In fact, I got a little tired just sitting there because I'm like, oh, this feels good. And
Yeah.
then we went downstairs just to regroup. We were talking to a couple of the other guys, and then Raven ran up the stairs, and then we
I didn't
came with her, and that whole atmosphere was completely different. I remember sitting there, and we were just trying to figure it out, and I was seeing um, these lights are this mist among the
yeah.
darkness. It was the dark within the dark, and it was
Mm.
forming in front of me. And I kept on kind of moving my legs, and then I was just forming something. And then Raven and I kind of switched seats because
For that. I
yeah,
remember.
we switched seats because I'm like, well, and then it happened again at the same time. But
Yeah.
at that same time, we were doing. I mean, we smelt the roses. We had a flashlight come out of my groin area, and just
That
like
was before. That was
yeah,
before all
yep,
the
it
things
was. So
got
we were
weird.
experiencing
Yeah.
all these things. So kind of looking and trying to tear that apart. What was it? I do think that at that time we were generally experiencing something we could not explain. It wasn't environmental.
Hmm.
You saw it, I saw it, we know what we felt, and other people felt it. One could say that before we went to the Sally house, Raven and I were checking into our house that we were going to stay at, and we met somebody that claimed to be the owner of the house, and he was indeed a vampire. And then he was showing us how to use the water and stuff. I'm sure he was trying to figure us out as people because it was kind of an odd time to be going to that area. There wasn't really anything going on in that town. So he was probably trying to fill us out to figure, well, what's going on here? Nobody really visits at this time.
Yeah.
And in that conversation, it turned out that he lived right across the street in a haunted mansion. And
Hmm.
he explained to us that he felt he was a vampire. He lived his life as a vampire. And I can tell you, being in that house, Dave, and we kind of talked about this before. There were things. There was a shift in the door where it sounded like the door opened and nobody. You remember that, Raven, when the door opened, and
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah. And even
environment.
he said something too
Yeah,
about it. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And there's more intimate details. I don't think we really have to talk about that with his personal life, but there definitely was something that was there. Whether it was him attracting what it was because of who he is, or maybe some of the unfortunate circumstances in his life that happened, right? So whatever it was, there I do think that he went downstairs. He had coffins in his basement, real coffins, and I think whatever was there, there was elements of what we talked about that kind of transitioned when we were at the Sally house. When we were, I was listening. I had the thing, and I said a couple words that we can't say here, and but yet that was kind of a subject matter that we were talking about at that house before we got there. So it's very
Yeah.
possible that in our starstruckness, when we were here, we are investigators, getting the opportunity to walk around a haunted mansion, that it's very possible that we actually brought something with us. But then again, the Sally house has a reputation of being something, and it's very possible that the environment was right at that time for us to get that kind of reactions. What do you think, Raven? Or Dave?
Go ahead, Rick.
I mean, I don't know about that. Just because, like we were saying, when we went and we tell this story all the time, but we went into that we went into the Sally house and we had a lot of things happening.
Hmm.
And those things we could have just been, okay, we're getting hits off the K2 meter, we're getting orbs everywhere, and we did try to debunk those orbs, by the way, like we
Jumping
tell
up
that
and down in the bed, looking for dust. Yeah.
trying to
But
find the
as
dust,
as
trying
we
to figure
told
out what it
people,
was.
there is no airflow in that house. Unfortunately,
No.
it is dead air, right? I mean, there's no movement. Yeah.
But like then, all of those things like in the beginning and like we were very, very comfortable with the space and we were getting all of the stuff and we're like, okay, but we were very comfortable. But as some of you know, and I love that Peyton Paranormal is commenting on the fact that I just go anywhere and I need a tracker on me. Thank you. That made me laugh. So if you're watching the video and I'm giggling, that's why. But all of that to be said, when I initially went back up the stairs, we were downstairs and nothing, we were just upstairs. Nothing was scary. There was nothing at all.
Right.
And then I was walking back up the stairs. There's no reason whatsoever why I should have felt the way I felt. No reason. And as I was walking up the stairs, and you're saying it was like walking through, kind of like walking through water, Gabriel.
Mhm.
And for me, it was like all of a sudden my heart was beating out of my chest. I was like super, super like uncomfortable and felt really nervous. But I was like, well, I can't stop now. I'm like, I gotta keep going. I'm not gonna turn around. And as soon as we got to the top of the stairs, there was that one room where nothing was happening in it all. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going in that room. There's no way. Like every instinct in my body said, nope, 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 nope. And
100%.
you
100%.
know, as you know, like we have to also trust our instincts, right? Like as humans, we know that we are given instincts on purpose to keep us from danger. And I was like, no way. There is no way I'm going in that room.
I
So
do want to say I had the same feeling. Raven, zodiac sign, both Sagittarius. So I think the fact that we're both same way, whether we're the same person, we think a lot like each other. Actually, we when we talk text stuff in the past. But saying that, I'm like, I don't want to push it any further. I did not want to, and that is so unlike me because I'm a guy that has always lived like you're not gonna push me. You're not gonna, push me away.
yeah,
Do this, and you said it more eloquently than I will ever say it. But yeah, that was a turning point at that time. That was the first time I felt very uncomfortable, even after all we went up until that moment. The SS system. We're doing that thing. Then the light that came out of your pocket and danced all over your face and went down the hall. And by the way, I was recording live for your podcast when that was happening, and I felt like a journalist. Like, did you see that, people? It went.
You did.
Really, I'm like, are we really seeing this? And I've never seen anything like that in my life. Uh, up until that, none of it bothers up until that point. And I did think talk a little bit about it. I just wondered if you brought something with you to
mm,
ignite. Because the
yeah,
second I went back to the Sally house,
Nothing.
nothing.
no.
So that's a good point, Dave. We did go back to the Sally House. You invited
After we
us.
said we wouldn't.
Yeah, I was kind of reluctant because
Mm,
there's some stuff that happened to me, like the shadow that was pushing down on me.
Oh,
It
yes.
would move differently than I was. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
so I
Oof.
mean, something was there. Something had my energy for a little bit. You could say because there was a point where you had to come and kind of take me away from whatever we were doing.
Yep.
So
I hope you're okay with me doing that.
oh, absolutely, Dave, absolutely.
That was during
So
the Estes session,
yeah,
actually.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
but the second time we went there, I could tell you nothing. Nothing happened.
Nothing at all. Yep.
Right.
Which was very interesting.
But
But
ghosts don't come on demand. So
Oh, and I think that's why you guys have great reputation. So positive, they're open. So when you do go through it, something, you can understand it. When Darkwood says, "That really went on site. We have found it. What you take that for what it's worth, right?"
right.
So I think with you two being as honest as you are and just being open about it, I think that's why it's so important to debunk.
hmm
And sometimes you're like, I just don't know what happened, and
Right.
maybe we go back and do it again.
And I think
yeah.
that's what's being a skeptic is coming back. But
Yeah.
then again, we recently went to our favorite place in Arkansas, Eureka Springs, and we had the pleasure of staying at the Crescent Hotel, and I drove all night. We left at what 7 o'clock in the afternoon. We got there at 9:30, 10 in the morning.
Mhm.
So I was tired. I was physically very tired. I got a couple hours of sleep real quick. We had a couple of interviews because we have multiple podcasts going on at the time. And that evening, in my room. We sit there. We had a conversation. We're like, hey, let's go meet up for lunch here. Let me just take a quick rest. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was tired. I mean, I was overly tired, and I was laying there in my bed, and just I had my alarm set a couple hours. I was gonna meet up with you. We're gonna grab something to eat. It's been a very interesting and active day. And as I was starting falling asleep, I was started having some dreams. Something literally shook me, and I remember feeling the shaking, and I remember opening my eyes. My body was shaking there for a second before it was stopped. And when something like that happens, when I've been unfortunate enough to actually be in situations like that, the air is different. And as I started opening my eyes and sitting, it kind of just dissipated, and it became like nothing again, like nothing. I mean, that room felt comfortable to me again. So I was like, what was that, right? So I was going to go back to sleep, right? I mean, that whole experience was kind of in my mind. So, I text you and we hooked up for lunch, and, I'm like, hey, I was just shooken awake and
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired. But something literally, it wasn't sleep paralysis, something literally shook me. And then, we went on a couple more interviews with the wonderful staff there. And then at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I text you, and I don't know if you're up or not. And I was like, hey, I'm going to go for a
Yes.
walk. So we actually have a video that we'll be showing soon that
Mm-hmm.
I spent an hour from the third floor at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, walking all the way down, and I was comfortable. But
Mm-hmm.
you said you heard three knocks, like someone was knocking on your door, you know?
So no, it wasn't like they were knocking on the door. It actually sounded like they were knocking on the wall.
Oh,
Uh,
and
but
three knocks are
you
never
know,
good, by the way.
when I heard three knocks, and I'm thinking, and this was at the same time. So like you had texted me around that 3 o'clock time, right? And it was around that 3 o'clock time that I had the three knocks.
Ah,
And I'm thinking, okay,
three,
well, if it's Gabriel,
right,
like he's just gonna say, "Hey, Missy, it's me," or something. Like I was
right.
thinking that was gonna be it, and I was still like half asleep, and I'm like, I'm not getting up. It's 3 in the morning. I'm like you, Gabriel. I'm like I like to sleep in. So I was like, it's fine. Like if it's him, he'll just say something. But no, and then there was nothing.
Right.
So yeah, three knocks on,
So,
but when I thought about it later, I was like, it didn't sound though that it was on the door. It sounded like it was above my head.
Really.
uh,
Hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
I've been there one time for the weekend, and I really didn't experience much. Unfortunately, I thought the place was amazing. I thought it was
beautiful.
It is
beautiful.
an interesting place.
Love that. I had an amazing breakfast and a great time. So
And a
I
great
did something,
confession.
but nothing happened. So
One thing that I found unique about the Crescent Hotel is that we took the full tour. We actually had an interview that will be up soon that we
Mhm.
talked to the tour guides. And before the year before we were at Rica Springs, we thought we knew the whole history of that hotel, and this is part of the skepticism side that we should have is that
Yeah.
we found out 95% of what we thought was wrong.
Mhm.
So it does create stories among stories, and they're not true. So after hearing all that, I was like, "There's nothing to this hotel at all." But I can tell you, after walking through the hotel, and we'll have the video up shortly, there was, even though I didn't catch anything on camera, there was a feeling in certain areas where you could see me look around because I didn't feel. Because your body to I think is your body is the best instrument you could have, and
like,
I was wide awake, I was elusive, getting up, at 3 o'clock in the morning is kind of a normal routine for me. Um, I was tired because, I didn't sleep that much the day before, but, walking around, there were certain areas that I doubted if I was the only I mean, everybody was sleeping at that time. Um,
Mhm.
there was nobody up except the manager, which was a cat, actually.
I
Wonderful,
wish I could remember the name of that
No,
cat.
it's true. I loved it. But, even the night, I shouldn't say this, even the night auditor guy, he was awake, but not very elusive. He was there. He just, and there were stuff that happened as I walked through that hotel from one corner all the way down to the basement that I truly didn't feel there was moments I wasn't alone. And I even went outside onto the grounds because it started to storm, and I wanted to walk around before it started raining, and there were certain elements to that property that I just felt like something was following me. I would look behind me, and I just didn't feel as confident as I usually do, because I don't think I was the only one there. And we'll have that video soon. But I think it's always good to we'll go back again and kind of retrace our steps to kind of figure out what was it that we experienced. It wasn't automatically means that it's haunted. It just means that we experienced something. We just don't know what that something was.
Right.
I think that's a really good way to put that. If you don't know for sure, just like, I had a feeling, but I'm not sure where it came from or what it was. I'm not saying it's paranormal, but there was an uneasiness. And knowing you the way I know you, confidence is not an issue with you. So there's something to that.
Right. So I tell this story every once in a while. I lived on a houseboat for about 8 years in Minnesota on the Mississippi year round. And there were times, the particular boat that we lived on with my family, my beautiful wife and our kid, we found out about a year after living on that boat that boat had the unfortune of the last owner and his wife and 2 friends and a couple pets passing away on it. We didn't know that. I should have. Let me back up for a second. When I was on land, we would walk aboard, and before we even bought it, and there was a sensation of that something every once in a while something would feel off. But it was the first time I even was on a boat, so I bought this boat, and I'm like, well, I don't even know how to drive it, so what do I do now, right? But I know I wanted to be a liveaboard, and I'm just the type of guy that we'll figure it out, and there was clues, but I'm a skeptic, so I'm like, there's nothing to this, right? Paranormal's been kind of a part of my life, as far as I can remember. So there were times, and I kind of tell this story when we decided that we had to move out of the boat because our son was of age, and he can't have friends over on a boat because there's liability issues, and we felt like we were kind of robbing our son of some kind of childhood because he wasn't able to have his friends over. So we moved on land. We bought a hobby farm, and I went back to that boat during the winter because it's hard to sell a boat during the winter. It's a big, huge mount, kind of a yacht, And I walked in there, and I wanted to check, make sure it's still floating. There's people living on each side of the boat. It was the middle of winter. And I remember I had a cold, so I couldn't really, smell anything. And I remember jumping down in the engine compartment because you kind of walk downstairs and you go through a hatch and you step down in it. And I heard a splash. But having water in the balls of your boat, if you will, is not uncommon. A condensation, who knows, right?
Yeah.
But it was dark. No batteries weren't working. And, so I have a flashlight, and there's liquid in the bottom of my boat. And I'm walking to where the batteries are, and I'm grabbing the battery cables. I'm slipping together, figure out why there's no juice, and nothing was sparky, thank God. And then I had matches, so I would try to light a match so I can see. And soon as I got to the point where I was going to push it forward to strike it, there's black mass would come in, and it would blow on me. And I was like, and I was scared because I didn't really have a light. My flashlight wasn't very good. I was sick, I wasn't feeling the best. And I did that a couple times. And every time I do that, the same effect would happen. This black mass would come and like blow at me, and I was scared. As a grown man, I was scared. So I'm like, something's not right here. I kind of felt it when I walked on the boat, The boat was dead. Usually there's a energy there, I have a battery bank that, would run the furnace, and I was, everything felt alive and comfortable. That didn't feel comfortable to me. So about a week and a half later, I go back to the boat when I started feeling better. And as I get close to it, I can smell gas. And I thought, oh, what is that? So I walk in and come to find out that that liquid in the bottom of my boat was actually gas. I just had my engines winterized, and the marina that winterized it, they stepped on a gas line and kind of loosened it. It was dripping gas. So that boat was probably full of fume. And whatever was there, and there's been a couple other things on that boat where I knew I wasn't alone. The guy that owned that before me loved it. and he just didn't leave it. He was there. So that was a case that, the paranormal kind of saved my life, that and the people living next to me. So I ended up, renting the boat and everything was fine at that. But you could smell the gas definitely in it. But I would think back at that being a skeptic to try to figure out what was that? And, was it God interfering that, I could have blew myself up? Or was there truly something there? Because I saw something come at me and it was fast, it was large, and as it rushed me, it stopped, and the wind would carry me, and it wouldn't allow me to strike the match because I'd step back. I'm like, what is this? So
That's so crazy. I love this story.
yeah,
I love that you share it. I mean, I like
it was extremely careless of me. Good fortune, I'm still here.
great mini movie. It's fantastic. I absolutely love it.
Yeah,
I think you hit on 2 points. Was God absolutely? Well, absolutely yes. Was paranormal? Yes, that's definitely paranormal as well.
right, right,
And and I think you're a very blessed person for that to happen.
yeah. Well,
Meaning,
I mean, right. Well, I mean, I think we've all kind of had experiences where we look back at it and wonder what that was. And I think being an investigator, well, we kind of have to. And a lot of people in the paranormal, at least what my perspective is that I meet people and they have an experience, and 100% it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And doubting. And I think in the paranormal, you have to have that second doubt. If you don't, then you're not being true. And I don't think we'll ever find true answers in the paranormal. I don't think we're supposed to. But I think that's what keeps us coming back because maybe, right? I'm willing to be wrong. And just like cryptozoology, right? I mean, Nessie, the Mothman, that thing at the bridge when it collapsed, whatever that thing was,
That was the Mothman.
the Mothman, yeah. So, you know, I I haven't other
Also
than the
believe
goat man, which I shared, not that long ago. I haven't had a lot of experiences with the cryptozoology, but the people that believe
Mhm.
in it to their core. And there's got to be something to it, but at the same time, you got to look at it and say, for Bigfoot, I mean, everybody has a footprint, I mean, everybody has that, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody can fake that too. And I'm not saying that what people have is fake. I'm just saying that if I wanted to copy a Bigfoot, it wouldn't be very hard for me to do. But at
No.
the same time, I think it's healthy to stop for a second and actually look at it. We were just talking, what was it, last year, where we talked about Bigfoot, and this guy was captured in Bigfoot in a sleeping bag and brought him back. It was a Bigfoot, his wife and a daughter or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
guy believed it, yet there's no real evidence of Bigfoot. I mean, there's Bigfoot museums with locks of hair. Josh
Mhm.
Gates had a lock of hair from Bigfoot. It ended up being, I don't know, a monkey or something. I don't know.
Usually.
So, I think that's what keeps people interested in the paranormal because we all have that curiosity. I think that's part of us. And we always hope maybe, but at the same time, I think it's healthy to sit there and say, maybe not. What do you think, Dave?
Mm.
no,
Wow, Gabriel.
that's a lot. And
I know.
That's a
Sorry.
Wow, I thought that was almost good for your outro. Holy
Oh,
crap, Gabriel.
sorry about
It's
that. Yeah.
good to think maybe,
that will
but
be
then it's so good to think
a
maybe not.
Right.
uh, yeah. I agree, my friend. I think we know just enough to know something's out there and what it is we don't know. I
Yeah.
cannot tell you there's a big. If I was going to lay $100 on the odds are I think there's a great northern ape running around. I truly do. I think there's probably different sizes, different regions. They have different characteristics. Dogman, I'm a little bit more skeptical on a Dogman than I am on that. But again, it's been around for a long time. Paranormal, I just had too much happen in my life that as a child and as an adult that I'm not saying it's ghosts. I can't tell you it was ghosts, not with 100% certainty, but there's something that happened to you and happened to Raven on her night through the graveyard where she was being followed. I love that story, by the way, Raven. So there's just things that has happened. Just like we have to at least say there's something to this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an expert. Again, like we talked earlier, if someone says if they act like they know everything or say they know everything, just they don't. You
Right.
know. But there's a lot to know, a lot to learn. And you're right. Maybe we'll just never know 100%. You know, maybe we won't know. What do you think, Rick?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I can follow all that up. I really just don't know.
I just
Thinking
go
of things I don't know about. All that to be said, like I'm kind of on the same. I'm on the same page. Like with there are certain cryptids, right? Like Nessie. I mean, that could just be
I
a
would
sea
love to
serpent. Yeah, I want to, but at the end of the day, like I think it's great to have that healthy level of skepticism. I think it's great to take a peek and cross the things off the checklist of what, okay, could it be this? Could it be this? Could it be this? And if it's none of those things, then it's paranormal because paranormal means it's not of the normal, kind of like UFOs, unidentified flying object. Like, we don't know what those things are. And I want to believe in all of them. I do. I want to believe there's some giant toad out there somewhere that was a monster at some point. I don't know. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the X-Files, of course. I want to believe in everything, but not all of it is true, and some of it could be based on levels of truth. It just doesn't mean that it's a completely true thing. When it
know.
comes to something like spirits, I do believe there are things out there, um, ghosts, spirits, whatever you want to call them, aliens, yes, 100%. But again, like we just have to take a look and see, does it make sense? And just compare notes and look and see if we can debunk it. If we can't debunk it, then we can say it's paranormal.
Well, and you can
Well,
share. I think the more you share, the more you listen to someone speak why they believe or don't believe, you learn. Just if I believe my hundred, just what that learn it, grow what we do.
well, I mean, if we're gonna, I mean, your basement, Dave, is haunted.
And you keep saying, Missy, come stay in my basement.
Missy B's, this is your happy place.
It is. Basements and haunted things.
So, I mean, maybe our next investigation should be our
Dave's
friend's
basement?
basement, because
It, it'll be yours, not. I can't. But I can tell you during the podcast, um, the three of us saw something float right across my room, right in front of us. We saw it.
right?
And then I was mad because I have to deal with my wife about this now. So I had to get up where it is and tell her that we're not haunted. You know,
Right, right. Of course. I mean, your basement is
No, no,
not
no.
haunted.
No,
Yes,
no.
you're fine. And I think buying a hobby farm with Highland cows would probably fix everything for you. You
I
know.
think Rufus would do well with Highland.
Yes, yes. And you're happy to come. You're welcome to come visit it once I take back control of them. It's fine. So,
I was gonna say, I think a Highland cow farm in general would just make anyone happy.
So
well,
I
I
mean,
do a mini series from the Dark Woods, and I think we're in the three of them so far. And I can tell you that in my neck of the woods, we had the goat man or whatever it was that ran from my garage that one night. And then whoever's interested, just try to search it out. It's a wonderful episode.
yeah.
And then I have an alien one that I just released, and sometimes in the dark woods things happen. I have plenty of time. I've been out at 3 o'clock in the morning, seems to be my time, and I'm sitting out in the hot tub, enjoying a cigar and a coffee, and I'll look down the field and I'll see floating lights. Um, and once I even got up, I put my slippers on, grabbed a rope. I just assumed it was somebody on my land, hunting deer or something. And
Hmm.
as I got closer to it, it would just dissipate. But I know what I saw. It literally looked like somebody had a flashlight on their head, and I was close to it. I was like maybe 20 feet to it, and trying to figure out as I got closer, you have this feeling that, whatever you're experiencing isn't something you're supposed to be experiencing. And I stopped. I'm staring at this thing, and it was just bam, gone. And I I had a flashlight. I was trying to. There was nothing there. And we've had other things here on the farm. That's why our episode is Dark Woods, right? That
Hmm.
in areas like this, and it just isn't exclusive to where I live. I think you have pockets of energy that live freely in areas that aren't you know that don't have like city lights and people's energies. They just don't have that kind of garbage, so it's more of a
That's true.
natural.
Yeah.
Graveyards, I don't think people haunt graveyards, but I do think energy does. Certain things are just attracted to death. Energy doesn't die. There's been times in my life where I was in a courthouse late at night. I had a cleaning company back in my younger days, and I was cleaning, and this ball of came shooting down a hallway, and feel the heat of it as it passed me. And my face was hot, and when I looked in the mirror, it was red, and it was just a ball of energy from all the nonsense people experience that go to these courthouses, either junk that they bring with them or junk that they get when they're there. Right? People carry
Yeah.
energy, just like land. On land, deers die, cows die, whatever. So I think that energy every once in a while kind of goes in the areas that felt comfortable. Trees have energies. We have a wonderful episode that I think people check out about like munchkins and fairies and stuff. That stuff I do believe is rooted somewhere in reality, whether or not it's in this region or not. But I do think that there's energies that do kind of survive in the dark woods, and that's where I think the lights. But I'm not sure. That's the skeptic in me that I keep on going out to find out what it is. Lights in the sky, that don't really follow reality. That
Yeah.
you feel it, and you can tell it sees you. What is that? It's not a normal energy. So stuff like that keeps skeptics like me and you guys trying to relive that experience to kind of understand it more, not to sensationalize it, but hey, this happened. What is that? What elements, what environmental nuances created this kind of experience? So,
I
I
love
have
it.
to say, the one time I lived in the country, that is a true story about the lights in the country. A
mhm.
true story. There had been times we were sitting out on our deck, and like you would just see the craziest things that you will not see in the city, and you are trying to figure out what that is, and you watch it, and it does feel like it's watching you back. So that is a very great point, Gabriel.
Yeah, I like you guys. I would love to hear more about that, especially over an old fashioned. I'd like to get what do you think it is? I mean, since we're talking about it, since we're being skeptical about this, what do you think it is? If you can pinpoint one thing on what this light was.
I think it's energy. I think it's balls of energy of whatever. I mean, animals die, right? In this area, we have bear that get hits by cars.
Mm.
I've seen large cats. We have wolverines. We have all kinds of stuff, right? And, and muskrats, all this stuff, kind of adds to the energy. When something dies, it just passes, right? It just kind of skips on the ground. I remember as a kid, I was I was in the bedroom with my two brothers, right? It was a two-bedroom house, and in our dark room, here we are, it's just dark. You had kind of the window open, you kind of see the silhouette of the moon. And once again, this ball of energy comes shooting through the door, through past us and out the window. And I remember all of us kind of stood up and we looked at each other. I'm like, did you guys see that? And it wasn't just the light, it pulsated some kind of sound. You could hear
Yeah.
it as it passed by you. And as a child, I think I was 5. My oldest brother's 2 years older, and my younger brother's 2 years younger than me.
Mm.
So, to understand that. And I think a lot of people have those experiences, and some of us are just we want to re-experience that to kind of figure out what it was.
Yeah,
I think back when I was a child,
yeah,
try to look at it through a child's eyes, and then try to look at it through an adult to try to figure out, is it? So being a skeptic, I think when it comes to paranormal, is great. I can't just go around everything's haunted. Oh, my forest is haunted. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I enjoy sitting out there, to kind of experience that again so I can dissect it a little bit.
That's awesome. What about you, Rachel? What do you think?
I mean, for me, it's aliens, but
Right. Our Bigfoot, you know? Yeah.
eloquent response. I'm like, it's aliens for me. I mean,
Right.
you sit there and you try to say, well, could it be, somebody flying a plane? Could it be whatever? Like, but the way that the lights just sat and they were super high up and it was just, they were it was doing weird things and it just was not normal at all. Hence the paranormal. But to me, I was like, that's gotta be. I can't explain this. Of course, I'm not an pilot or aerospace, or I don't work for NASA, and any of those things. But for me, it was aliens.
I love it. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Dave, I've been driving all day and he was happy. He was good, kind enough to sit there and give us some of his time. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Raven, like always, I always appreciate your perspective. So we didn't chase shadows. We didn't study. We talked about belief, about experiences, about the stories that stay with us long after the lights go out. But more importantly, we talked about questioning them. And I think that's very, very important because being a skeptic isn't about disbelief. It's about respect for what the truth is, respect for the unknown, and respect for the line that separates the two. With Raven, with Dave, we walked that line tonight. And what we found wasn't that the paranormal becomes less real, but that it becomes more meaningful when it's understood. Because if everything is accepted, nothing is proven. And if nothing is proven, then what we really are experiencing is nothing. So the next time you hear something in the dark, the next time you feel something you can't quite explain, don't rush to believe it and don't rush to dismiss it. Sit with it, question it, understand it. I am Gabriel Von Graves, Raven Knight, Dave, our best friend. Stay curious, stay aware, and friends, please stay safe out there. Dave, you don't mind just hanging on a couple more seconds, my brother?
I got it. We're
Thank
good.
you. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
joining us
everybody.
today.